Hello all my Kenvians and welcome to a new episode of Discovering Steven Universe. Today, the episode I'm going to be watching is Gem Drill, and I've really been looking forward to this episode because I've been curious when they're actually going to go in and actually use the drill that they've been working on for so long. And clearly after the end of the previous episode, the time has come, but instead of it instead of it being the whole crew, it looks like it's just going to be Peridot and Steven going down into the core. I'm really interested to see how this plays out. So, without any further ado, let's begin Gem Drill. And go.
Are you ready to drill down into the void, to depths never before reached by your species, to stop the cluster before it forms and save your world? I don't know. Don't say that. We'll do it together and it's gonna be great. We're gonna do it together and it's gonna be great. Liar. Right or not? That's superheated peridotite. Peridotite? Yeah, it's made of the same stuff as peridots.
Oh.
You were made on Homeworld, right?
Aww.
It's fine. I have something different now. What's that? You know. You guys. What's that sound? They must have buried some photos. There, just gotta keep balance. Okay.
Good God.
I don't know if it's... You want to? Want to what? Please, stop! It's the cluster. There's no way! They're buckling
Oh.
each other! I've got you. You've got this. We've all got each other! They'll have lots of time to get to know each other, now that they're in a bubble. How on earth did you bubble that whole thing? We had a little help.
Wow. Huh. That went much differently than I expected, to say the least. Like last time, just a minute to gather my thoughts and I'll be back after the cut. Alright, time for the review portion of this video, and wow, this episode. As always, let's get started with some of my favorite parts of the episode, starting with Peridot's motivation, so to speak. I actually marked this as one of the quotes of the episode, but I'll go ahead and mention it here. And she says, "We'll do it together and it's gonna be great." And then Steven repeats that and she calls him a liar. It's such a strange exchange, but it works really well because it's kind of that chaotic personality that Peridot has, especially in relation to how she was a few episodes ago when, you know, she was just very chaotic minded, just kind of like, you know, she was elated to have done what she did and she was also terrified. And that definitely played into what was going on here at the very beginning before they started the drill. My second favorite part of this episode was the fact that Peridot actually teared up about thinking about Homeworld, thinking about where she came from, and just having that nostalgia that maybe she's never experienced before, or probably because she never had to worry about it before. She never had to worry about not going back to Homeworld. So yeah, I found that to be, again, just another amazing moment of character development for her, where she's getting used to life on Earth, but at the same time, she's adjusting, she's developing as a character. And I just really love that fact. My next favorite part, very simple, very silly, but the Nintendo 64 controller blast cannon. Primarily the fact that it was the Nintendo 64 controller. When that popped up, it cracked me up. So yeah, that's, very simple again and very silly, but I just loved that they did that. My next favorite part of the episode was the cluster itself. And just finding out that these gem shards aren't just mindless fusions. Even the mutants, in a way, it's like the fusion mutants, they are a smaller, much smaller version of what's happening with the cluster here. While it's a very basic thought process they have, they do still contain some intelligence, so much that they are actually able to communicate with themselves and with Steven. And also the cluster was just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And the fact that all of these different billions of shattered gems, it's like when they're trying to form, they create these translucent, almost physical forms. It was really hard to describe it, but I found that to be just amazing and beautiful and terrifying at the same time. And then my final favorite part of this episode was the bubbling, as I call it. Just the fact that Steven was able to communicate to these shards to the point where they actually understood what would happen if they were to form. And so they bubble themselves and actually work with Steven to bubble themselves as a whole, as the cluster. And just the way that worked out, I found it to be beautiful. And especially when it went back down into the Earth's core and it showed us the cluster there. That was just amazing. I really loved that. Moving on from there, annoyances. Honestly, didn't have any. But it should be no surprise what my moment of terror was, and that was the cluster. To be more specific, the cluster's ghosts. And just how all of that was affecting Steven. Like, it was physically hurting him. Up until that point where he falls asleep and goes into the cluster's mind, or collection of minds, its collective consciousness. Just that was... I figured they weren't going to kill Steven, but he's gotten hurt before, so just like seeing him struggle like that, it was legitimately terrifying, honestly. And then again, also just like the whole spirits, so to speak, of the shattered gems and how all that worked. That was just really freaky, to say the least. Now, moving on from there, my track of the episode, the one that stood out the most to me definitely has to be the track of music that was playing as the bubbling occurred, as all of the different little shards started to bubble themselves and then form one whole bubble. I remember it being just very simple and very peaceful as far as the music goes. So yeah, I really liked that track, to say the least. Moving on from there, as for a quote of the episode, I already mentioned the "we'll do it together and it's going to be great," as back and forth between Steven and Peridot. But definitely the quote that it tickled me, and it came out of nowhere. But when Steven was using the Nintendo 64 controller, blaster cannon, and he says, something doesn't feel right, or this doesn't feel right, and Peridot just looks at him and says, then use the D-pad. Just something about that line, then use the D-pad. It's just as someone who plays games as a gamer, that just tickled me to no end. And again, it's by far my quote of the episode here. But moving on from there, as for a question I have, whether it be for this episode, maybe it was explained kind of and I just didn't fully get it, but why was Steven responding so strongly to what was happening down there at the core with the cluster? I mean, his gym was reacting strongly, and I mean, he's done the mind reading thing. He's gone into other people's thoughts and dreams, but we've never seen it like physically hurt him before to be experiencing that. So I don't know if he was like sort of telepathically feeling the pain that the cluster was experiencing or what exactly. But again, that's my question. Why was Steven responding so strongly there? And again, if it's something that's explained further on, don't tell me, but if it's something that's sort of left open to interpretation, I'd like to hear your all's thoughts on that. I'm curious what you all think what it was that, caused him to just respond so strongly and so painfully. Because again, that was a legitimate, moment of terror for me. The fact that he was feeling physically hurt while that was going on. It was just crazy to me. Now, as for a theory, I didn't really form one, a theory going forward, but I don't know, I guess the most general theory I can think of would be that the cluster will come into play at some point down the line. I don't know if it'll be in the near future or, much, much further into the show. Maybe it's not even happened yet. I have no idea. But if I were to have a theory, I would guess that would be it, is that it'll play a vital role some point in the future. Whenever that is, who knows? But all that aside, my overall thoughts on this episode, very well done. Very well done. I strangely wouldn't say this is one of my favorite episodes, but at the same time, it was really well done. It was well written. It had some good drama there. It was again, legitimately terrifying in some of the elements that were going on. But as a whole, I really did love this episode. Again, I can't really say that I would consider it one of my favorites, but at the same time, just as sort of a conclusion to this subplot, or to this point of the plot so far, I really found it to be a nice closing there, and just essentially, a nice little bit of storytelling there. It's like it was well written. The action, so to speak, that was there, I felt like was done well. So yeah, just overall a good, strong episode that I really enjoyed. Now, coming up next will be Same Old World, and I mean, based on that title at least, I'm not sure what it's going to be. Maybe it'll be sort of a reflection on Steven's part after having gone through what he did. Maybe it'll go into a little bit of what he experienced in this episode. I'm not sure. But as for this episode as a whole, I really want to hear your all's thoughts on it. Some of your favorite parts, annoyances, quotes of the episode, so on and so forth. And also your thoughts on what I had to say. And before I close up, any of you that want to see more episodes like this and other series that I'm going to be working on ahead of time, be it a few days to a few weeks ahead of time for Discovering Steven Universe, Discovering Doctor Who and Classic Who, which is coming up, and other series that I'm going to be doing. If you would like to see those ahead of time, you can go over to the Patreon, which is patreon.com/PapaKennMedia, link in the description down below and at the end of this video. And you can, for as little as $1 a month, get access to those episodes as they go up. I give access to the patrons as soon as I have edited and uploaded those videos. And as of recording this, I have actually uploaded the Discovering Doctor Who movie review, which will actually be going up before this episode even airs, so I don't know why I'm mentioning it here. But that aside, if you would like to become a patron, it would be greatly appreciated, again, for as little as $1 a month. But all that aside, thank you all so very much for being here for this episode of Discovering Steven Universe. I am very much looking forward to the next one, Same Old World, if I can talk. And at least for now, I think this is going to be the end of my recording session, done 3 episodes in a row. And yeah, I hope you all have enjoyed this little journey into me getting to see the cluster and experiencing what happened when they finally used the drill. So until next time, everyone, I am Papa Ken, and I will see you on the next episode of Discovering Steven Universe.